It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back, baby, for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Big time Thursday episode full of all of the fantasy news that you need, and we're taking a close look at both playoff races in each conference and big time bets. Thank you for joining us. Let's get right to it.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You heard the music, and you know what time it is. It's time for your source for fantasy hockey news and degenerate gambling breakdowns. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Steal and Flip. Thank you for joining us for Thursday's episode, and thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We appreciate you, and we are here for all of you fantasy and gambling fanatics Monday through Friday. Make sure you tap in and don't miss a single episode. Steele, today we are going to keep things short and sweet. It's nice that we've been getting a little long in the tooth on a lot of these episodes because there has been a lot going on, a little bit of a quiet end of the week here. But it's not quiet in these playoff races, and there's some intriguing storylines to look at in both of them. Obviously, the East, very tight. The West, a little bit more open, but it's shaping up to be spicy. Little Jonathan Quick revenge angle, perhaps.
Yeah.
I know you and I want to talk about that. Big-time bets coming up as well. But a little injury news. Again, this beleaguered Ottawa Senators team. I think let's start with Thomas Chabot because as much as maybe you and I both can probably agree that the Sens are done already, lurking, but Thomas Chabot is them on the ice, and it's going to affect fantasy owners as well. Hit me with your take on Chabot and what's going on with these Ottawa Senators. Again, another injury.
It's one of your good old sayings that there's just so many hurdles that this team has to jump over. Yes. And this is just another one that has been thrown their way. A huge injury. You know, they've already lost so many players this season. We've talked about the Ottawa Senators from August. We've been talking about the Ottawa Senators from August all the way up to here. It seems like every single day, but there's just been so much news around them. You know, potentially selling the team, all the injury news, the goalie situations as well. And this is just another tough battle that the Ottawa Senators face. I don't want to say they're out of the race yet because I don't believe they are. Okay. With the way the Florida Panthers are playing, the way the Pittsburgh Penguins are playing right now, I think there's still a lot of teams in this race. I think those two teams I just mentioned, Ottawa, Washington, Buffalo, it's going to be hard for those teams because they are 5 points back with no games in hand. But they're not out of the race. I think, you know, they do have a very tough schedule moving forward without Thomas Chabot and all the other guys that they're missing right now. It's going to be tough, but they've got a shot. They're not out of it yet, and I don't want to say they're out of it.
Maybe I'm more comfortable saying it just because 3-6-1 over their last 10. And actually, when I look at 4 of these teams in the hunt for those wild card spots, 5, Pittsburgh, 4-6-0, Florida, 5-4-1. And then Buffalo, 3-4-3. All these teams just being very average, if not bad, at a very important time of the season. And I think that just really translates to whoever gets them in the first round is going to roll right through a couple of these teams, potentially not named the New York Islanders, because you and I both talked about that. We're taking some heat, though. Steele, you're taking some heat for your power rankings the other day.
I love it. It's totally fine. When I'm proven right, you know, I'll be humble about it. If I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. That's
I was here for that heat because I was a little bit off. I don't know what's going on over there, but you're trying to stick to your guns, and I respect that. Anyway, back to the point at hand. Thomas Chabot done probably for the season from what DJ Smith says. I know there's some conflicting reports out there. Shout out to the Locked On Sens boys. But DJ Smith says Chabot will not be available, likely out a couple of weeks. To me, that sounds like he might be done. We're not going to speculate there, but you're going to have to fill a hole with Chabot because as much as we're unsure about what's going to happen with the Sens, 41 points from this D-man is obviously fantasy relevant. And I just think, Steele, this is just a really good player who's had some bad luck over the last couple of years. And I don't think we've seen the best from Thomas Chabot just yet. If you're okay, that's where I want to leave this Thomas Chabot conversation. And let's move on to, you said you want to start in the Western Conference with the playoff race, correct?
Yeah, I'd love to start with the Western Conference because that's the conference that's wide open right now. Not one single team has clinched a playoff spot, unlike the Eastern Conference where you already got 5 clinched spots in the postseason already. So it's wide open in the Western Conference. We are going to talk about the wild card spot, the second wild card spot. Winnipeg Jets. You got the Calgary Flames and Nashville Predators right on their tails. But let's start with the top 3 teams in that Pacific Division, the Edmonton Oilers, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the LA Kings. I was just thinking about this the other day. When we were doing our top 5 NHL Stanley Cup contending teams, and you were talking about the Edmonton Oilers, I didn't even realize this until yesterday, actually, that if the Edmonton Oilers keep winning games, and they probably can looking at their schedule moving forward, they've got the second easiest schedule for the remaining of the season. They play the Kings twice, the Sharks twice, the Ducks twice, the Avalanche once. That's a very easy schedule. They can probably win 6 out of 7, 5 out of 7 of those games. And if they can keep winning those games and finish first in that Pacific Division, the Vegas Golden Knights will most likely be playing the LA Kings. And that, again, that's a Jonathan Quick revenge tour angle right there. Yeah, that would be an absolute incredible first round series to watch. Jonathan Quick looking for redemption, revenge against the team that traded him away, that he's been a part of for so long. Yes. And these teams are almost identical when you look at them. They've got a very strong defensive group. They've got some inconsistent goaltending and a very underrated offensive group as well. So that would be, to me, one of the best first-round matchups to keep an eye on.
And this is just shaping up to be, I said it a few weeks ago, this playoffs, it just feels like something special is about to happen, really. And I know some years you go in hockey, this is a special time. You're always going to see great hockey in the playoffs, and that's true. But this just feels like, Steele, we're set up for a first round. Usually that happens second or third round. It feels like the first round is about to be an absolute bloodbath. And now all of a sudden, before I hit you with a quick take on the Edmonton Oilers, which is a very intriguing one, the Calgary Flames have life. The Calgary Flames right there. I was ready to count them out as well, and they're right there now knocking on the door. And I think that's one of those kinds of teams, Steele, that big disappointment this year, for sure, up and down. But we know what happens in the playoffs. The season starts again, pal. It's all bets are off unless it's with us. Bets are on coming up at the end of the show. But you know what I'm saying? All seriousness. A Calgary Flames team, if Markstrom can figure it out, big if maybe, good defensive, very good defensive coach. I don't know. Don't count out those Calgary Flames just yet, people. Be around. Things get very serious. And before we get to break, Steele, the Boston Bruins went on such a special heater this year that I almost stopped looking at the goals scored category for teams because they were running away with that, and they were at the top of goals allowed. And now take a look. This Edmonton Oilers team is lethal offensively, and obviously watching hockey, but they now have 25 more goals scored than the Boston Bruins. Look out if they can get some goaltending, Steele. That's where I wanted to leave it with that Oilers conversation.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to say the other day in our most recent podcast or most recent episode as well, is that if it were to be the Edmonton Oilers and LA Kings in that first round, even though last year it went to 7 games, they still lost. Edmonton still beat them, and that's how I would see it That's how I would see it going again this year because of how lethal offensively they are. They can let 4 to 5 goals in a game. They can let 4 to 5 goals in a game and still put up 6 or 7 themselves. They can win those games, especially in the first round. So to me, the LA Kings have a better shot if they play the Vegas Golden Knights. They would know Jonathan Quick's weaknesses. They would know how to play against them. It would be a great matchup against the Golden Knights and the Kings. If it's the Kings and Oilers, I've got Oilers all the way. It might go 7 as well, but Oilers would still be winning.
And again, just another good team going to be left out in the first round. Yes. So the things are getting spicy in here, Steele, and I'm here for it. Actually, we're here both together Monday through Friday, so make sure you don't miss it. And we see you people, and we appreciate it. All the comments, all the DMs, all of that love and support. This is what we're here for. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode, one that is sponsored by Built Bar. You're looking for a delicious treat and you don't want all the fat and calories, you know where to go. It's Built Bar. What makes Built Bar so good? For starters, Steele's favorite, loaded and covered with 100% real chocolate. That's right, 100p real chocolate, and they come in unbelievable, delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but they make it taste like a candy bar while maintaining those amazing macros. And what's even better, they are healthy. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And you don't need to wait around anymore to get a box because, yeah, you can still go to Built.com. Good idea. But you can head down to your local Walmart or Sam's Club and pick yourself up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate or coconut puff. Or if you're close to a Sam's Club, run over there and grab a 13-bar box of the hit flavor, brownie batter, or even churro, and thank us later. That's all the new fire from Built and Built.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. With the cost of groceries going up and up, now is the perfect time to get started with HelloFresh. HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout. I love HelloFresh for that exact reason. It saves me time and money, and I don't have to sacrifice taste or quality. For more information, go to HelloFresh.com/NHL60 and use code NHL60 for 60% off plus free shipping. Again, that's HelloFresh.com/NHL60. Again, today's sponsor is HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free and available on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. So make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love, all the support you show us every single day. We are coming with the heat, with all the updated odds for making the playoffs or missing the playoffs. And that's where this conversation continues in the Western Conference, with those 3 teams battling for that second wild card spot. Right now, currently, the Winnipeg Jets do hold on to that second wild card spot, but it is a tight race. And Flip, if you don't mind, I'm going to list some numbers out there, throw some schedules at you.
Please.
This is absolutely crazy to me. This is a very tight race in that Western Conference. Winnipeg Jets, they have the 15th hardest remaining schedule. They have Detroit, New Jersey, Calgary, Nashville, San Jose, Minnesota, and Colorado. And to me, the favorite thing about this is that all 3 of these teams, Winnipeg Jets, Calgary Flames, and the Nashville Predators, all play each other at least one more time in the last week of the season, as well as they play the top 3 teams in their divisions as well, the Colorado Avalanche, the Minnesota Wild, the Dallas Stars. So it's going to be a crazy last couple of weeks, but if you don't mind, I'll get back to the remaining schedule. So Winnipeg Jets, second wildcard spot. Right behind them is the Calgary Flames. They're 2 points back, but they have the easiest schedule remaining. And then the Nashville Predators are 3 points back right now, and they've got 2 games in hand, but they have the 3rd hardest schedule remaining. And right now, the Nashville Predators are at plus 510 to make the playoffs. The Flames are plus 186 to make the playoffs. And the Winnipeg Jets are minus 136 to make the playoffs. So these are great odds right now. I think there's some money to be made right here.
Agreed.
And what do you think right now? Jets at minus 136. They're playing horrible hockey. My bet hit the other night against the San Jose Sharks. San Jose Sharks plus 1.5 on the puck line. Sharks beat them 3-0, so that hits. They're playing horrible hockey, but they're minus 136 to make the playoffs. Do you think they hold on to that second wild card spot, or do you think there's some money to be made on the Calgary Flames or maybe even the Nashville Predators since they have those 2 games in hand?
If there was a team I would go to, Steele, and it's because I think they still have the best goaltender in UC Saros, even though I know he hasn't been UC Saros, I'd be intrigued to maybe sprinkle on Jets to miss out and sprinkle on Nashville to make it consecutively. That's sometimes when you can make those bets, congruently with the same thing, it can be huge. So I don't just when you lose to a San Jose Sharks team in that fashion, when that was their first win in 10 games, I got to take a serious look at what's going on with this team, because as much as I just said, some of those bubble teams aren't playing well. There's some show that they do have it. So when it's like prove it or go home time and you lose to a bottom feeding squad like San Jose, I think it just screams volumes to where this team's head is at right now. So I'm probably with you with the Winnipeg. I love Rick Bowness, though, Steele. I can't even finish the first point without starting my second. That coach can get a team fired up and turned around, and they do have a lot of good pieces. I just don't see it this year. That's where I'll leave it. I don't see it this year. So I think I'm with you. Jets miss out, and maybe one of those teams. I don't know which one, but I would sprinkle Nashville for the juice.
Yeah, it's a hard decision. I'm with you, though. This was my team to like fall down the standings. The last little bit was the Winnipeg Jets. And we heard it from Rick Bowness the other day. I love Rick Bowness as well. He's a fantastic coach, but you heard it from him in his press conference after the game against San Jose, where he's like, if these guys think that they're playing at 100%, that's just untrue. They're not. Like, there's so much more gas left in the tank, and they're not putting it out there on the ice. And it doesn't make any sense. And, I'm reading some tweets that there's going to be a culture change this offseason. We're going to have to switch things up. Who knows what's happening? They already stripped the C off of Blake Wheeler. So things could be very chaotic for the Winnipeg Jets if they miss the playoffs. But I'm absolutely with you. I would put money on the Jets at plus 108 to miss the playoffs, make some money there, maybe even parlay it with the Nashville Predators, who, again, they're only 3 points back. They have 2 games in hand. So technically, if they win those 2 games, they're in that second wildcard spot. But that's where it comes in. The juice at plus 510 to make the playoffs, minus 850 to miss. And they have the third hardest schedule. You've got the Pittsburgh Penguins, St. Louis Blues, Dallas Stars, Vegas Golden Knights, Carolina, Winnipeg, Calgary, Minnesota, Colorado. Like I said, Nashville, Calgary, and Winnipeg all play each other at least once in that last week.
That's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. And even looking at the Calgary Flames schedule, see, this is why I wanted to bring this up too, is the Calgary Flames, again, have the easiest schedule. They're 2 points back. They're plus 186 to make the playoffs. This is their schedule flip. Vancouver, Anaheim, Chicago, Winnipeg, Vancouver, Nashville, San Jose.
And if we want to make more of a case for the Flames, which it sounds like we're doing nicely, and I think I'll be heading to my local sportsbook FanDuel to sprinkle a little Betsky, is they haven't even come close to playing their good hockey this year. Yeah. Right? They've been very inconsistent, and I'm not saying banking on a team who's been inconsistent and a disappointment all year to finally figure it out in the last 9 to 10 games is exactly a good strategy to employ when it comes to wagering, because it's not. But it doesn't mean that it might not happen. So these are these kinds of situations that you have to keep. Perhaps more importantly, Calgary Flames fantasy pieces going up against those pincushion, like that Swiss cheese defense on some of those teams could be a really advantageous look to start focusing in on some of those pieces that probably steal because they've disappointed this year, might even be available for you out there on the waiver wire in some more shallow leagues.
I believe so as well. To wrap this conversation up very nicely, I think what I'm leaning towards parlaying Winnipeg Jets to miss the playoffs plus 108 and putting that together with the Flames at plus 186.
Yeah, I said Nashville. I like the Flames more now.
And then a separate bet by itself, the Nashville Predators to make the playoffs at plus 510. Actually, maybe parlay the Nashville Predators and the Jets together.
Good odds
to miss. So juicy odds. It increases your odds as well. But yeah, I would definitely be fading the Winnipeg Jets this postseason. Plus 108 to miss. Calgary Flames plus 186. Nashville plus 510. Those are some juicy odds. They've got a very advantageous schedule and games in hand over the Jets, and the Jets are just playing horrible right now. Maybe, Flip, we should save the Eastern Conference playoff picture for next episode. Really dive in deep to those odds of making the playoffs, missing the playoffs, and we'll get over to big time bets very, very quick.
After a historic night from Caitlin Clark, Iowa's women's basketball is headed to the Final Four for the first time in 30 years.
When you talk about this team, you have to talk about Caitlin Clark. 41 points, 12 assists, 10 rebounds. That was a performance for the ages.
And the Miami Hurricanes punched the final ticket to the men's Final Four, upsetting the Texas Longhorns 88-81 on Sunday night.
They really enjoy being that sort of team that comes from behind and creates that Cinderella narrative, and that's going to be certainly the case again against UConn.
Preview both teams' Final Four matchups by tuning in to Locked On Hawkeyes and Locked On Canes. Then listen to Locked On's new series, Paving the Way. Each episode highlights a different voice from across the network, a Locked On host whose journey in the industry has helped pave the way toward creating a more inclusive and diverse media landscape. That's Paving the Way, presented by State Farm, available now on the Locked On Presents podcast feed.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. We absolutely adore you out there. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button. We love you guys so much. It helps the YouTube channel and the podcast itself grow every time you share and like and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform as well. So do all of that. Again, don't be afraid to leave any comments on the YouTube channel. DM us over on Twitter. We love communicating with all of our listeners out there. Flip, let's try to help our listeners and fans out there as well with big time bets where the money is made. There's the yellow pad. There's the notepad, baby, with the picks on them. A lot of, might I say, interesting matchups for Thursday night. I really only found 2 games that I could pick from that I really felt confident with. Okay. But there are some juicy matchups out there. So you know what? I'll throw it over to you. What is your first pick for Thursday night?
Appreciate that, Steele. And actually, I alluded to it on our last episode. We have to apologize. Sometimes we skip a day or two. Steele and I are human beings, so that's our bad for a lack of a Wednesday episode. But I was in the house for the Penguins-Detroit Red Wings game in Detroit on Tuesday night. And the Pittsburgh Penguins played a very interesting game. They played a solid in-between 25, bookended by 2 awful 15 minutes and finish the game. Yeah. And I just think that they're not going to miss out on too many more opportunities to win games. And after they absolutely blew it against the Detroit Red Wings, I'm going to take them at home against the Nashville Predators. And I know you and I both like Nashville, second half team, also on the playoff bubble, lots to play for. But actually, the Penguins let that game slip away. And they should have dusted aside the Red Wings. The Red Wings got a little fortuitous with a couple of bounces. But I think this is a big bounce-back game. And if you don't mind, I'm actually going for my second pick in the second game with this Detroit Red Wings situation. They're at home again. Because, look, sometimes when you're in the building and you're able to watch hockey, thankfully you and I have been able to be at a bunch of games this year, you can actually see firsthand what's going on. And that can really tip your hand. Alex Nedeljkovic is now going to get a run out in Detroit. I don't know if you've been seeing this because they're out of it. He's the confirmed starter for Thursday night as well. He looked a little shaky at times. And again, if it wasn't for Pittsburgh shooting blanks, he let in 4 goals. A couple of them were soft. I think that this is a spot that he might be a little overconfident, and Carolina is just coming off getting dusted by the Lightning. So, first pick, Penguins, money line. Second pick, Carolina on the money line. Both heavy favorites, Steele, but what I saw from both teams, this is just the spot. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to parlay all 3 of my picks together, including my lock of the night, which I'll get to in a second. But I love Penguins on the money line, and I really like Hurricanes on the money line.
I like the Hurricanes on the money line a lot. I had to stay away from that Penguins-Nashville game. There's just too much on the line for both of these teams right now. Both teams have kind of been back and forth with some crook. That's what I was thinking. I was looking at the last 10 matchups between these two teams. Penguins do have, I think, 7 out of the last 10
points in 8 of 10 against the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, so they've had it. They've had the Nashville Predators number, but it's gone back and forth with under and over in those games. There's too much on the line, so I don't hate the pick. It's just one I'm staying away from. I like the Hurricanes on the money line. I do like that one, and I can't wait to hear your lock of the night as well. But if you don't mind, I'll just list off all 3 of my picks because 2 of them come from the same game. First pick on the night. By the way, I'm parlaying all 3 of these together well. Bruins on the puck line against the Blue Jackets, -176. There's no money to be made on the money line. So I'm taking them on the puck line, -176. 6 out of the last 10 games, the Bruins won. They won by two or more goals against the Blue Jackets. So I'm taking that because they are the favorite in that way. I'm also taking the Bruins and Blue Jackets at under 6.5 at +100. I think that is great odds at +100 for under 6.5. Actually, 7 out of the last 10 games between the Bruins and Blue Jackets have been under the number. So if you're going to give me a plus odd for an under 6.5, I'm absolutely taking that. The Bruins are a stingy defensive team. Linus Ullmark, Jeremy Swayman. I'll leave those two guys alone because they're absolutely fantastic. Bruins puck line, Bruins Blue Jackets under 6.5. And for the final pick, this should be everybody's lock of the night. Everybody, Flip, if this is not your lock of the night, I don't know what is. Panthers, Canadians over 6.5 goals, minus 128. This is a crazy stat. 7 straight games have gone over the number between the Canadians and Panthers. 4 out of those 7 games went over 8.5 goals in the match.
Yeah.
There was a game. The last game was 9-5. There was 11 goals in the first. Yeah, there's 11 goals in like the first period.
Oh, so that was crazy. Yeah.
That should be everybody's lock of the night. Panthers, Canadians over 6.5. Parlay them together for a juicier odd, and you'll definitely thank me later.
It was on my list. It was on the old notepad. It was on Uncle Flip's pad, and I scratched it off. Deal because I wanted to winners tonight, and that's why I wanted to parlay. And one of my biggest tips that I give, a lot of people ask me, Flip, how do you bet? What are some of your go-to tips? Never make a parlay of more than 4 picks. 3 is my magic number unless you're betting $10 or less. If you're betting anything more than $10 to $20 on a parlay, it should be maximum 4 picks, if not 3, in my opinion. 3 is my sweet spot. But ideally, Steele, I would have had that on this list if not for that rule alone. But my lock of the night is the Tampa Bay Lightning at home. And let me explain.
Yeah. Yes.
Not only is Washington on the second night of a back-to-back, and Charlie Lindgren is likely in the cage. You know my thoughts on Charlie Lindgren. Lefty goalies I never trust, and especially one who lets in muffins like he does. He might as well open up a bakery. But the Tampa Bay Lightning, I said, are sleeping giants. And after I said that, they went out there and beat one of the best teams and shut them out. Now, confidence in Andrei Vasilevsky. This is a big turnaround win for this Tampa Bay Lightning team, which is bad news for you and I as Maple Leafs fans because we know how important momentum can be headed into the playoffs. And if the Tampa Bay Lightning use this win to ride a wave of it headed into the postseason, we're going 7 games again between Toronto and Tampa in the first round. Anyway, Washington on the second night of a back-to-back. Washington also just having lost to Pittsburgh in a big emotional game, which was very draining. Obviously, you can see it on the player's face. And the back-to-back night and Tampa on the roll. This one feels like free money to me, Steele. Tampa, money line, minus 190. That's why I got to parlay all 3 together. But realistically, I think Tampa Bay, if I had a big amount of cash sitting around, I am hammering the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight. That's my lock of the night.
All right, I take it back. I don't hate the lock of the night whatsoever. If your choice is not the Panthers, Canadians over 6.5, then it should be Tampa Bay Lightning on the money line. Those should be the locks of the night, and
Or why don't we put a little locked on parlay special? Ignore my rule, smash all 6 together, and throw a 10-piece on it. Let's see what happens.
Let's ride this bet out, baby. That's usually what I end up doing anyway. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm on a heater right now. I'm 6 for 6. Don't know what the picks were last night, but hopefully I went another 3 for 3 last night and continuing
I'm gonna say
this
you
hot
did. How
streak.
about that?
Let's say we did. Call it a day. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Now make your second listen game to game. Every moment, every performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Thank you again so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace out, Michigan.
After a historic night from Caitlin Clark, Iowa's women's basketball is headed to the Final Four for the first time in 30 years.
When you talk about this team, you have to talk about Caitlin Clark. 41 points, 12 assists, 10 rebounds. That was a performance for the ages.
And the Miami Hurricanes punched the final ticket to the men's Final Four, upsetting the Texas Longhorns 88-81 on Sunday night.
They really enjoy being that sort of team that comes from behind and creates that Cinderella narrative, and that's going to be certainly the case again against UConn.
Preview both teams' Final Four matchups by tuning in to Locked On Hawkeyes and Locked On Canes. Then listen to Locked On's new series, Paving the Way. Each episode highlights a different voice from across the network, a Locked On host whose journey in the industry has helped pave the way toward creating a more inclusive and diverse media landscape. That's Paving the Way, presented by State Farm. Available now on the Locked On Presents podcast feed.